Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to another episode where we are going to be talking about the title. This is one of the most interesting topics that so many people have been asking about. But you know what? We are here with the right people, and I'm here with
Adidra Jones.
mhm.
And Sarah Easley.
Right. These are the right people for all these questions. I'll be here to guide. And you've been asking me a lot of questions about this, but you know what? I said it's just right for them to let them do the job. Now, without wasting a lot of time, I'll just get straight into it. And the simple question that, common man might not know what it is. We know what deed is, but what is title, if I would ask?
Great question. Title itself is the legal concept of owning a property. So it represents your right to possess, control, and dispose of that asset. It's transferred using the document called a deed. So there's your kind of difference between a deed and title.
So when somebody says title deed, it means
So title is your ownership. The deed is how you transfer that ownership.
deed is
It
how you
shows
transfer.
the
How easy
vesting.
is that? And how come we don't know these things? All right. Now, going ahead, I understand that the titles need to be insured. I mean, it's why should it be insured?
Great question again. Title insurance is not like other insurances that you're worried about future risk. It actually
Right.
covers past risks. So it's a one time policy that protects your legal ownership, that title, and your financial equity against past issues like undisclosed liens, any forged documents, or undiscovered liens that might come up after the fact. So it's essentially covering past to give you clear title going forward.
Right. Wow, that is very interesting. I didn't know that all that come up in a deed. But is that mandatory?
That that is a harder question to answer. It's technically not mandatory to get
Yeah.
title insurance. However, most closings cannot be done without it.
Okay.
Escrow officers at title and escrow companies, a lot of real estate attorneys, they are going to require you get title insurance because they want to understand what they're paying off in their escrow process and providing that buyer with clear title.
I see. I'm trying to put in my mind, okay, I need to insure my car against, against theft and against accident, all that stuff. What are some of those things that can actually show up in a deed that, will require me to actually to insure it?
Yeah, so any unpaid liens, you have tax liens, judgments, an individual that owns a property, any judgment against them individually also attaches to their property.
Okay.
Any unreleased mortgages from a prior owner, ownership disputes, missing heirs, on a deceased person from the past, things like that are what are covered and the benefit of getting title insurance. That a company is researching all of the public records and verifying all of the information, paying off all the proper liens on the title to give that buyer clear and free title going forward.
You talk so much about liens, and this means things like collections or unpaid debt, right?
Correct. It could be your mortgage that you use to purchase the property. We consider that a lien. Any monetary item, a tax lien if you haven't paid taxes with the IRS.
Right.
A homeowners association lien could get recorded if you haven't paid your homeowners association dues. Sewer liens if you are within a sewer system that liens property if they are unpaid. So any monetary items that
Yeah.
that affect the property.
Right. I want to believe that when somebody is taking a title, it needs to be marketable. And when we talk about marketable title, or yeah, a marketable title means that it should be free of these debts and all these liens, right?
Correct.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of
Mhm.
terminology is coming on as we're going. Now, what is vesting?
Okay, so vesting is the method of which you hold ownership.
Okay.
So the deed that transfers the property to you, the vesting that we refer to is how you hold that ownership. Are you an individual or single person? Are you being vested as a married couple with a spouse? Is it in a trust or an entity, an LLC or a partnership? How your ownership is vested refers to how you're holding title.
Okay. Does that include holding title as a trust? It's
Mhm.
also part of vesting?
Yep, correct. Like trust,
Oh, I see.
individually, joint tenancy, tenants in common, community property.
Right.
It's yeah, how you or the other owners with you in the property hold title.
And brings us to a very, very interesting part of it, where I think most of questions come here, like where do I hold, how do I take the title, or how do I hold the title? I mean, now, what does tenancy mean? Some of these things, we know them in another language, like in partnership or something like that, but I understand you use the word tenancy. What does it mean?
Yeah, so
And what
tenancy,
kind of tendencies do we have?
you got it. So tenancy would refer to multiple persons owning a property together. So you have a joint tenancy, as what we call it, where you have co-owners that hold equal shares
Yeah.
in the same deed. So it also has a feature off of it, joint tenants with right of survivorship, meaning if one owner died, their share would automatically transfer to the co-owner. So that's a joint tenants, and then there's like
Right.
joint tenants with that survivorship.
Okay.
Another tenancy is tenants in common,
Mhm.
where the co-owners hold an undivided interest. It could be a 60-40, a 20-30,
Right.
but their shares do not pass when they are deceased. They stay with themselves or their heirs based on their will. They do not automatically pass to the co-owner.
Right, right, right.
Mhm.
Okay. Very, very interesting. I think things are getting interesting here. I mean, now I'm in a tenancy with someone else. I know there are different types of tenancy, the ways you say that, joint with survivorship and all the stuff. But what happens is when somebody dies,
Oh,
whom
that
I'm
is
only co-owning with? Yeah.
one of one of the hardest parts of our job is having to deal with that and ask those questions, and a lot of times get more information, more documents.
Right.
It all depends on how you are vested and how you hold title. Like I said, if you have that joint tenants with the right of survivorship, a a copy of that death certificate evidencing
Right.
a death allows us to pass on. If you're tenants in common, now you have to look at, did that deceased owner have a will? Are
Yeah.
they probating it? Who were they leaving the property to? If it's community property, you have a husband and wife.
Right.
It's it's in Washington is a community property state, assuming that
Yes.
anything you buy to during your marriage is community property.
Right.
If there's a will left from a deceased that they wanted their half of the community property to go to someone else, they could do that, but a
Right.
probate would probably need to be filed. If not, it would automatically by law go to the surviving spouse. And then if you're like a sole ownership, a single person,
Yeah.
um, you have two kind of options. There is a lack of probate option if there is a will that specifies who all the heirs are and how the property gets divided. Companies have their own affidavits that they would require those heirs to sign, and then any heir listed would essentially be the rightful heirs to sign and transfer the property. Or you could go the probate route where a probate is filed with the courts.
Yeah.
The courts reviews everything, appoints one personal representative that can
Yeah.
handle all of the affairs, sign that deed to transfer, sell the property, depending on what you're doing upon death, to take care of kind of one representative to take care of the entire estate.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you talking about probate, which is it comes in to make the vesting easier. And not only vesting, but what happens after somebody dies, right? Now, before we go ahead with this, still in the tenancy, can I go can I hold title with somebody who is not my spouse, not my not my brother? We are just like friends.
Of course you can. So
Okay.
that would essentially be, you wouldn't have to specify it, but that essentially would be like a tenants in common,
Okay.
someone that's not a relative, not a spouse. It could be you and I going,
Right.
buying a house
Okay.
together. Yeah.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Now, what about zoning and title? How does zoning affect title?
That is a question that is probably not the greatest answer I have for you. Zoning does not actually show up on title in the public record that a title policy ensures or shows.
Okay.
Zoning restrictions are always at the local government level. So it
Yeah.
would be like your building and planning. And if you're in Spokane County, you have a Spokane County Building and Planning Department. If you're within the city limits, they have their own building department. And that is where all of the permits and zoning applications and zoning information come from. Um, Zoning does have certain restrictions as to what you can do with a property, depending
Yes,
on,
correct. Mm.
yeah, whether you can have a single family or a multifamily complex if you're building something new, whether or not you could have commercial or not. That's where the zoning comes in, and that is all the local government level, not something that is on any recorded document that would be on a title search.
Sweet. So we have that the state as an effect of how you own title, but not the zoning and the local government, right?
Right.
Okay, sweet. Then the next thing is, can I put my property in a trust?
Of course.
And how does that work?
Properties can go into trusts. So you see other entities like LLCs,
Yes.
partnership agreements. How a trust would work is most likely you've at that point, if you're putting a property in trust, you've already worked with an attorney and established a trust and trust
Right.
papers essentially. That the trust shows those trust papers, who is the grantor, the person creating the trust,
Yeah.
who are those trustees, the person who manages the trust or the property, who would that successor trustee be if the
Okay.
initial trustee were to pass away or be incapacitated in any way, and who the beneficiary is. So, who is essentially the owner of the money or the owner of the income at that point. So, a title would review those trust documents, and
Okay.
we would just vest the trustee's name as trustee of the the ABC trust and show the date of the trust that matches those trust documents that we require to review. And at that point, you can add your trust or transfer it to a trust or start by
Okay.
deeding it into a trust. I believe the biggest thing to know is that with any entity, you
Yeah.
do have to have a bank account associated with that trust or with that
Right.
LLC, because a title company, if you were to sell, distributing money always has to go to the same account that is vested in title. So
I
with an
see.
estate, it would be a similar thing. If a probate was done, money would go to the estate account. If it's in a
Okay.
trust, the trust account. If it's in an LLC, the company account.
Yeah. I mean, one question is leading to another at this point. At the time I bought my first house, I'm making an example. I didn't have the issues of trust in my mind and all that. I was just buying a house. I was excited to have a house during that time. I mean, stuff happens. Happens later on. I now want to put the house in a trust. Can I do that at a later stage?
Yes. So if you own it as an individual or with a spouse, as long as, so you can put a property into a trust,
Right.
as long as it's the same beneficial ownership, there's no excise tax that's due, and that's at the
Okay.
county level. To like when
Right.
you go to sell, excise tax is charged. If you're just transferring from your trust or to your LLC and you have that
Right.
same beneficial interest, they don't charge that tax. You can do that later on. And one of the benefits there, when we going back to talking about what happens if someone passes away, the
Yeah.
property and the title, it stays in the trust. So now we just look at who's the next successor trustee to manage the
Right.
property. There's no
Right.
probate needed. It's a lot easier and kind of protects from some future estate planning, or as part of why people do that, the trust.
Estate planning. Okay, I
Yeah.
see that. All right. Thank you so much for that enlightenment. I mean, to be a little bit precise, and I know majority of our listeners are, people who came to United States or in one way have connections from outside the United States. Maybe the next questions will be touching on international and immigration concerns. Now, the next question is, are there any restrictive covenants that uh, could stop me from doing AFH, that is adult family home?
Right. So there are RCWs, and that
Yeah,
means that's Revised Code of Washington,
right.
RCWs that actually ban any discriminatory covenants. So
Yeah,
you would not see a restriction that does not allow you to house disabled persons from living in a home. So essentially, no to the restrictions allowing those CCNRs. Again, you'd have to go back to it'd be the building and planning department and whether the zoning allows for it.
okay. So if I'm doing adult family home, it's very important for me to check with the building department.
Yeah.
And that does not really include the HOAs, like the homeowner association and all that stuff.
Correct. That would be completely separate. Your CCNRs, those restrictions are going to show up on your title report
Right, right,
for
right,
copies for everybody. That zoning that the county permits what you can and can't do with certain properties in certain
right.
areas is they're the ones that would have more of a restriction on an an AFH.
Okay, sweet. Now, I came to the United States. I bought a house or two. I've lived here for some time. It's time to go. What happens to my house?
So if you want to retain ownership, you can. Your property rights are protected,
Right,
even if you're not physically in the country.
right,
Um, Managing it from abroad could be more of a risk. You want to plan carefully
right.
because you don't want accidental foreclosure or abandonment or
Yeah,
squatters in the house. So
yes, yes,
um, just because you leave does not mean you lose ownership of the home.
right. All right. So as long as the taxes are paid and all the other dues, if there's still a mortgage on it, so long as the mortgages are paid, my ownership is still intact. Okay, sweet. The next thing is, can I add a family member who lives outside the US to my title?
Technically, yes, you can.
Oh,
Anyone can be
okay.
added to title. An individual, any person can hold title, foreign or not. Any person can truly hold title. Um, Obviously, a deed would have to be done, and there could be some tax ramifications as far
Yes.
as excise tax that are due by
Okay.
just adding someone to title without there being a sale. Whether you use a gift, there are some some taxes that could be involved. Whereas one of those things, you want to seek a real estate attorney's opinion to verify that you're doing the right, transferring the right way and paying the correct taxes.
Okay, that's a very valuable information. I mean, I had no idea that somebody can do that. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Now, coming closer to marriage, because title and marriage, they kind of work more or less most of the time. It's very close. And we have that Washington is also a community of property. So a situation is here where I am married to another person who is in another country. I am in the United States, the person is another country. Do they automatically have a share or have a right to the property?
Based on the community property law, technically, yes.
Okay.
If your marriage was legal and valid, even if in another country, we would recognize it
Okay.
here. So ultimately, it would be the same rules of assuming that anything you purchase while you're married is
Right.
community. Yeah, there are things you can do. You can still acquire title as a married person
Yeah.
as their separate property, and the spouse would sign a quitclaim deed to release all interest in the property. We have seen that be a way that people hold title as well.
Right. Just to be clear here, community of property is property that is acquired within the marriage, right?
Correct.
So properties that were acquired before the marriage are not part of the community of property. That clear? That's correct?
Yeah, so anything you acquire prior to would be considered separate property.
Sure.
There is a little bit of uh, risk that could be associated there. When you
Yeah.
get married, are you keeping funds separate? Can you prove that no marital funds after the fact contributed to that home that you acquired first?
Yeah.
It's very hard to prove. So a lot of times, most title companies, even if you owned the property prior to marriage and you get married and now you're selling it, still want that spouse to
Right.
sign off to acknowledge and release any potential community property.
Right.
Um, I mean, it goes as simple as if I owned a home and my new spouse came over and helped fix a cabinet,
Okay.
does that now become community property because he has helped
Sure.
upkeep that? Are
Exactly.
any funds that we hold together used to to do any repairs or anything like that? That is where it can get a little bit tricky, and why title companies want those spouses to sign off and release that interest, just to be cautious so no one can come back and claim that they had a right, and we can give that clear title to the buyer.
Okay. Interesting. And so I am married, and for example, if I go back to the scenario that we had before, what do you need from a spouse? What do you need them to show that they're actually married to me? That is gonna make you believe that actually my spouse has the rights to the property. What do they need to show?
Usually just an evidence of some kind of marriage certificates.
Okay.
Here in Spokane County, a lot of times they're filed and we can search them on public record.
Okay.
If you were married elsewhere, just evidence of that marriage, and you're going to
Okay.
tell us, yes, I am married, and we'll want your spouse to sign out and help us get that clear title at that point.
So I can't just show up, right?
No, if you showed up and say you're married, okay, well, who is your spouse? Do you have any
Yeah,
evidence of that? And then we would want to, do
correct.
we need to make them sign or not, and deal
Right.
with any potential community property.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, thanks for that. When we talk
Mhm.
about marriage, we are not very far from divorce. And then, so what happens in if somebody divorce in another country?
Yeah, so if you divorce in another country, excuse me, sitting up here, um, Washington would generally recognize the decree under the
Yeah.
legal principle of committee, it requires both to you and the ex-spouse to have notice of the proceedings and have the opportunity to be heard. At that point, if that decree addresses Washington property, a title company is going to review that. And we're going to see exactly how the courts or that decree said that the property was to be divided, whether or not it was awarded to one person entirely.
Okay.
If it was ordered that you now share this as tenants in common and you have to sell it, or if it orders one person receives it, but in order to get it, they have to pay their spouse
Right.
X amount of dollars. So that decree is when there's ownership of property, always is going to address how property should be handled. And that is what we rely on to then move forward with any requirements we have on who would sign what is needed to close a transaction.
I see. Interesting. Then, but what about if I just divorce? I was here and divorce happens. We are both here. How do you go about it? It's not in another country, it's just here. How do you divide the property?
We would wait for the divorce decree. Any decree usually is done through the courts,
Yeah.
and we would wait for that final divorce decree, or if there was some kind of like property settlement agreement that they had
Right.
filed, and we would wait for that to be issued and finalized by the courts, and
Yeah.
then we would divide the property accordingly. Whether that meant both of you had to sign out and you share the money. However it reads, that's how we would address it. So we have to wait for that court decree
Right.
that's kind of like a court order at that point for us to be able to move forward.
And dividing here most of the time means selling the property and sharing the proceeds, right?
Yes, a lot of times you'll see that exact example. Occasionally, if there's multiple homes in ownership, you'll see that one gets this house, one gets that
Right,
house, will
sure.
split that way. Or maybe one spouse is going to keep the house and refinance and give any equity that they owned in that house. They're going to give half of it to the new spouse and do a refinance.
Right, right. Correct. Now, enough of the marriage. What about if I'm single? I mean, I'm fresh. I just want to buy a house for myself. I'm single. Can I hold title as a single?
You sure can. I would probably say probably 1 out of 4 to a good 25-30% of homes are purchased by single individuals.
Single individual, right? Being single most of the time is not a permanent, it's not a permanent state. It can be, but you know what? It's temporary most of the time. What about if I'm making moves? Now I have a boyfriend. Can I add a boyfriend or a girlfriend to a title? And if so, do you advise that?
I mean, you can add anyone to the title. So a boyfriend or girlfriend, however that may be, you have to do one of those deeds to transfer that percentage, whether it's 50%, and you have to pay excise tax on that portion or on the debt that's on the property, a certain half of the debt on the property. So it can be risky. Because if your boyfriend or girlfriend for 2 years and then you're not anymore and one wants to keep the house, one wants to sell, now you have to be in agreement of how you sell it because you have your own individual interest, right? You have two single persons kind of each have a 50% interest. You have to agree. You can't necessarily sell half of your interest. It's either you're selling the entire or you have to buy each other out to have that sole ownership after the fact. So it can be a little bit more risky, but it can be done.
So if I get you properly, so most times the boyfriend or girlfriend cannot just walk in the way they cannot just walk out the way they walked in.
Right.
Like we say, okay, your boyfriend, time is up. You're going. Don't go. I added you to the title, but it's time up. I mean, it's time to go. Why don't I just go to the title and say cancel that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the same process to add them. To remove them, you have to go through and do that deed and pay the appropriate excise tax that would be due at the time to
Right.
remove someone from title. So you're kind of paying double there to add and remove someone on the excise tax level. And you have to give a
Right.
narrative as to why, and obviously be in agreement, because the person that's giving up the ownership at that point has to be the one that signs. It's not the person that's keeping the house. It's always the person that is selling that signs and transfers to the other party.
Yeah. I understand you termed it there as risky. Right. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a risky business. So, all right. Anyway,
It's risky. It's
then
it's definitely doable, Christopher. It's just, that's where if you have an attorney
yeah,
or a tax accountant, talking them with the options and what's the best way to do that.
right,
Definitely
right.
recommended. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a proper legal way to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, sweet. All right, we're getting into financing. Right. Can I, if I buy with cash, is the title handled differently than if I bought it on credit or using a loan?
Technically, no. On our end, it is everything is done the same. The only difference, as far as is the title, preparing the deed, the transfer, the policy, the research of the property, it's all the same. The only difference is you're not relying on a lender to buy that property, so you usually can shorten that time frame of
Right.
closing a little bit.
Okay. All right. All right. Then, what if someone else in the mortgage, can I still own the title? Like, I'm not in the mortgage, but can I be part of the title?
Um, yes. So if you are the owner of title and you hold the vesting deed and you're the owner of the property, if someone else is on the loan, it can be done. Um, because you're not on the mortgage, the lender won't hold you legally responsible for paying the loan. However, if it defaults,
Yeah.
it's your property that would be lost. So you'd be relying on someone else to pay a debt for your assets, and kind of almost give up a little bit of control there, and put your property at stake.
We probably talking about being on the loan and being on the title. To avoid confusion, would you like explain what's the difference between loan and title?
Yes. So being on title means you hold the actual ownership of the property.
Okay.
Being being on the loan means that you are legally obligated to pay the borrowed money. So you are
Okay.
obligated to pay back, but you don't
Right.
hold the actual ownership of the property.
Okay. Let's see. Interesting. Now, can I buy a house that has got a lien on it, that has got some collections or some debt on it?
So yes, this is where the title insurance comes in. Most every
Right.
a very high percentage of people have, either a mortgage or
Mhm.
maybe a lien, maybe a judgment, something. Where title insurance comes in is we do that research, and escrow is going to use the seller's proceeds to pay off any liens to get that
Right.
free and clear and removed for that new purchaser coming in.
Yeah.
So most of the title reports that we issue are going to show an existing lien, maybe two. Those are what's covered by the title and escrow services.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay. And what does this interesting name FIPTA, FIRPTA, what does it mean and where does it apply?
FIRPTA is Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act.
Okay.
So that is a tax law designed to ensure that a foreign person and or entity pays U.S. income tax on capital gains from the sale or disposition of U.S. real estate.
Okay. To make sure that the owner or the new owner or the owner of the property pays capital gains. And what is capital gains?
Oh my goodness. So capital gains.
Yeah. I know that is like the
Looking,
profit that somebody makes.
it's the
Um,
profit.
yeah,
I'm looking to see, yeah, profit from any sale of assets. So that would include
yeah,
other things, stocks, bonds, in addition to real estate.
yeah.
And it's only applicable when it's sold.
When it's
So when you,
sold.
yeah, just when it's sold. So when that person would sell or dispose of it, that is where you're receiving that money, that profit,
Yeah.
and that is when it
Okay.
is taxable.
All right. And so this is a system where now the state or the government wants to make sure that you pay your taxes or your dues on that capital gains. Makes sense. Right. Uh, yeah. Um, and what is title fraud?
Title fraud. This is one that's coming up a lot more these days.
Okay.
The title fraud, or as we call it, kind of like deed theft, is when a scammer tries to impersonate or illegally transfer your property by forging like a signature on a deed and then tries to sell the home or take loans out against it. So that's kind of the title fraud. They they really are targeting um, certain property types right now.
Yeah.
So it's often like vacant land or
Hmm.
abandoned homes, property with equity, but no mortgage, right? No lender, no payoffs needed. And especially the vacant land is the one that I think is the high target right now for some of these scams. So it is a real thing, and title companies do their due diligence. We want to verify owner sellers. They are who they say they are, and we have some things in place with our ID verification. Us title companies in town, if we get word that someone attempts to do it and got caught, we share with the other title companies. You can let the auditor know to freeze, put a
Yeah.
freeze on the property to get notification. So it is a real thing. It's not as frequent as you would think. I
Yeah.
ran a little search just to see like on average the number in the United States, and the FBI had received about 9 to 11, somewhere in that range, 11,000 fraud complaints kind of on
Wow.
an annual basis. But considering there's over 230 million homeowners,
Yeah.
it is a very low chance that you would fall
Yeah.
victim to it.
Mm.
Um, there's many things that you can do to protect yourself.
Yes.
Um, your homeowner's policy, that their owner's title insurance policy
Mm.
protects your legal ownership rights. Tycor offers a new property monitoring service.
Right.
On every single close, it will alert of any. Sarah, do you remember all of the things that it alerts you to?
Yes.
I figured you would remember.
Yeah.
It's obviously if it's listed on the MLS,
Right.
if anybody's trying to take out a loan or
Yeah.
basically, I don't remember the whole list, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
that
see
was
there's
that a
anybody
lot.
trying to use that
yeah.
that
Yeah.
address, it'll alert. Yeah, it's
It'll
Yeah.
send you
pretty
an
cool.
alert. And then
Yeah.
little things, monitoring your mail, making sure you shred any financial documents so no one can try to identity theft you. Monitoring your credit reports, just kind of basic things to help prevent and be on top of it. Yeah.
Okay. It kind of and what you just said is nowadays I see it quite a bit on MLS popping up every time, or somebody trying to falsify documents and try to lure other people to buy a property that is actually not theirs. All right. And in the beginning, we talked about title insurance and whether that was mandatory, and you said no, but we now realize that in as much as it's not mandatory, it is very necessary, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that. Um, how do I actually protect myself? What are the best ways? What are those, good practices that would advise somebody to kind of put in place
For protection from any
from
type of
fraud?
fraud? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so closing with Ticor, like Sarah and I said, we have that title monitoring. There are
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
there are other places you can purchase the same thing. And you get those same alerts with the exception of the MLS notification. So there are other
Mhm.
protection plans you can purchase, but they don't come with that MLS notification. And ours is free.
Yeah.
So closing it with us, you
Oh,
automatically get that after you sell. That new purchaser gets that monitoring for free. Um, and then little things, making sure you're diligent about protecting your financial documentations and
yeah.
monitoring credit reports, making sure there's not any type of identity theft going on, because that is basically the most common fraud, is impersonating someone to sell a property or using their social security numbers, their information to take out credit cards, things like that. So those are the things you can monitor regularly to help prevent and be on top of it.
Yeah, that is very, very necessary. And now you get it that Tyco goes out of their way to actually provide what others don't provide in terms of the security of your title. Now, the next thing will be, what happens if somebody falsely claims ownership of my title?
Yeah, I had
Now
to.
it's happening to
Now
me.
it's
I
happened.
mean,
Now
yeah.
what? Yes. And this is where it would just suck, and you don't wish it on anybody, because there's so
Yeah.
many things you need to do. Um, you're going to want to contact the county. You're going to want to reach out to the auditor and ask them, and treasurer, ask them to flag it for fraudulent, put a freeze on everything. You're probably going to want to file a police report, because this is a form of identity theft,
Yeah.
right? Um, and for that identity theft fraud, you're probably going to want to talk to an attorney, um, because if they did get away with fraudulently deeding your property, you might have to
Right.
use an attorney to do quiet title to kind of get it undone, right?
Right.
If you have a lender, you're going to need to notify them. You're going to want to contact your title insurer. So if you have a policy with Tigor Title, you'll want to contact Tigor Title and get in touch with the claims department and see what steps they can help or can do to help you through this. Report the crime. A lot of times that I think the FBI has a fraud internet crime reporting link or website that you can report it in. So there's lots that you have to do. You want to, notify as many people as possible to put freezes on everything. And then that real estate attorney is really going to be the one that will help you go through, okay, this is what the next steps
Right.
we need to do to get this rectified.
Okay. Wow. Looks like a very rigid process. But before we get there, I mean, so talking to immigrants, about owner's insurance. Now we now see the necessity of having title insurance. Why should immigrants always get this kind of insurance?
It's something I would recommend anybody purchasing a home should get
Okay.
it.
Mm.
Not just immigrants. It should be mandatory for everybody, in my opinion.
Correct. I think
You
so.
you want to protect what you're purchasing, right? This is a
Right.
financial purchase and
Mm.
financial stability you're trying to build. And if you go into that blind to the past, you could really lose out. So it's getting that free and clear title, getting that protection in place that you have all of the legal ownership rights to possess that property and dispose of it the way you want.
I
So
see.
it should be mandatory, but it's very recommended for everybody
Right.
to
Right.
get it.
I,
Yeah.
I I would recommend it too. Now, people who do fraud sometimes can be very smart. Let's say that it was a fraud, and we did everything to the closing. I was the buyer, for example, and we closed on a house that everything looks good until after the closing. What options do I have when I realize after closing that actually this was fraud?
That you tried to purchase something that someone didn't have the right to sell. Yeah.
Correct.
That is where, right, you were a new purchaser and you purchased that owner's policy, and that is where that protection lies.
Okay.
If you have a forged document coming in and you hold that policy now, the title company is going to, it's designed to essentially defend those ownership rights and
Right.
help cover financial costs. So if the person fraudulently sold it to you, that is where filing a claim on your policy can help recover those costs,
Yeah.
and get that back to you. And again, there is always the need of talking to a real estate attorney to help litigate if you need to, if you're trying to go after the person that wrongfully sold you. And if there's litigation to be done at the court level, real estate attorneys can help do that to recover and rectify any costs as well.
I see. Interesting. And last but not least, as a realtor myself, I sell houses, and I realize that this is a very, very emotional process. I mean, people pour their hearts into this. Buying a house is one of the largest investments that so many people will ever do in their entire life. And the question is, what if I don't understand all this process? What if I don't understand what I'm signing?
Yeah. So, I mean, for anybody signing anything, my advice is to never sign anything you do not understand,
Correct.
real estate or not. At that point, you can stop, ask questions, ask the lender, your agents, the title experts, ask for more questions to better understand, ask for more time if
Right.
more time is needed to review that paperwork. And then consider, if you're still struggling, consider at that point, hiring a real estate attorney to help protect your legal and financial interest at that point. But
Right.
don't be afraid
Right.
to ask questions or ask
I
for more
see.
time if you need more time.
Right.
Mhm.
And with my experience working with the Tyco for some time now, they have a ton of information that, and I thank you guys for providing that. You do a lot of educating, you do a lot providing information so that things like this shouldn't happen, where somebody is signing things that they do not know. And I think that is one of the benefits that I think my clients have really enjoyed closing with Tyco, because it's made clear and easy to them. And you coming here to explain all this is just an evidence of that you know what, there's no need for you to get in something that you don't know when the information is there. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you so much, Deeds, for coming in. And if anyone have any questions, you are free to reach out to me. These nice people, Sarah and Deeds, are there to answer your question anytime. And thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate you. Okay.
Thanks, Christopher.
All right. Bye.